What's up, everyone? Welcome back. This is another episode of just what's going on with all the federal stimulus package stuff. So I'm Logan. Adine, what's up, man?
Yo, what's happening?
So, Adine, what is like the latest on this? So it's April 20th. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time. I know we got something going on where like we talked yesterday about maybe 310 billion, maybe a lot more, maybe nothing at all. So what's the latest in all the I guess we'll start with the small business side first, with all the small business stimulus PPP 2.0 stuff.
Yeah, the government's trying to figure out where they can find more helicopters so they can drop more helicopter money. So what they're doing is the first round of PPP, a lot of small businesses got locked out. All the bigger ones, as we talked about yesterday, were the first ones to get the money. Some of the smaller businesses I'm working with are starting to get funded. So the biggest issue is not enough of Main Street's really small businesses have gotten the PPP loans or any sort of stimulus. And so the government, obviously hearing some backlash, you see it in the news all the time. So they're trying to come up with 2.0, really more of the same in terms of style, just more money, try to flood the streets, get people to survive and stay open.
So I also read that, well, actually, how much is that amount? Have they actually come out and disclosed what that looks like money-wise?
No, the numbers I've been hearing is 350 to 400 billion. So the first one was 349. Now we're talking about another 350 to 400. Now, what they're disagreeing on is where does this money go? The Democrats want a big portion of it to go to hospitals and testing facilities, which is wonderful. But there's also some other smaller things that they're arguing about. It's kind of stupid. They just need to say go, let's do it. And then they can figure out the extra 50, 100 billion down the road for whatever they want to do.
So, okay. So I'm also reading there's some cool stuff, not cool, but stuff coming out now that some of these larger publicly traded companies like the Roost Chris, the Shake Shacks, they're actually returning their PPP money. I don't know if it's PR move or if it's the fact that they realize that for them, they're such a big company that 10 million is going to get eaten up in a second, and it's not worth bringing all these employees back to pay them because they're then going to have to go back on unemployment a week later. So it's kind of interesting how all that plays out. So hopefully, do you think the government would reissue the let's say from those three companies the total of 30 million, or what happens with that? You think?
Yeah, I would think they will have to reissue it because, I mean, what's the point? It didn't go anywhere. And I think a big reason why those particular companies are returning it is, if you think about it, they're restaurants, right?
Right.
So even if they take that money, you have 8 weeks from the time you close on your loan to use that money towards payroll, so it's forgiven. So what are they going to do? Bring people back and pay them, but your restaurants are still closed and only doing takeouts?
Right.
It's stupid. So I think they somehow, somewhere along the lines, finally realized, like, this is dumb, and we're taking this money and it's actually taking it out of small businesses who do need it. So let's give it back. And I do think that the government's going to go ahead and reallocate that money. But I mean, 20 million for Ruth's Chris, 10 million for Shake Shack. It's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's change.
Right.
So we need PPP 2.0 no matter what. Now, on the publicity side, I think these companies are getting a lot more flack for even taking the money to begin with. So whatever you do, whatever, you can't win.
If you do, damn if you don't. So, yeah, they've done it. So, all right. So moving on from that, we have on the personal, the $2,000 a month. Like that is like the new personal stimulus package that they're trying to put out. So what is that? What does that look like? Because I know right now everyone just got $1,200. Maybe they got it. Maybe they got mailed it. What's the latest on that stuff?
Yeah, so they're trying to put out other options, programs for individuals. They're realizing that businesses have so far been the favored group. The $2,000 a month is going to be highly contentious. It's gaining, I think, steam in the media. I think from the government's perspective, I don't know how far it's going to go, because what they already have done is enhanced unemployment benefits. So on one hand, they got the PPP for the businesses to keep paying their employees, Then for those who just have to go and be on layoff, they have enhanced unemployment benefits. So now adding another $2,000 a month on top of that is I don't know how far that's going to go. Again, sounds great during times like these, but I just don't see it going too far. I mean, there's going to be stalling in Congress, and hopefully, we'll be back to all working and not even having to worry about it.
So, but they're also, you mentioned this is that they are now allowing, I guess, if you're like a sole proprietor, or a solopreneur,
Yeah.
that you can now, I guess they're about to release that you can file for unemployment, or we were talking about that a little bit before the call. What is that? How does that work?
Yeah, so historically, if you are a sole proprietor, whether you have employees or not, you yourself are not supposed to be on payroll, and you yourself didn't have to pay unemployment tax for your own income, right? So your net income from being a sole proprietor, being self-employed, and therefore you were never allowed to claim unemployment. So that was a big group of the population that just never got to benefit from that when we had economic downturns. They always got hit with having to fend for themselves and figure it out.
Right.
So with this, again, the government's realizing that there's only so much they can do if you're self-employed and half the country's shut down. So for the first time ever, they're opening up unemployment to sole proprietors, self-employed, whatever you want to call them, people who are not incorporated, who are not part of a bigger company. And so every state has a different opening window. Last week is when the feds actually pushed down the information to the states about how this program is going to be administered. So this whole, this week and in most states, all of next week, what they're trying to figure out is, how do we revamp our systems, our technology to allow for this? How do we process it? And then how do we get money to these people in an efficient manner? And again, mind you, these are self-employed people who a lot of times, tracking whether or not they're making money, not making money, which has always been a big part of unemployment. It's going to be very difficult. So I think it's going to be one of those programs where the government says, sign up, we'll send you a check.
Yeah.
And we're not really going to worry about compliance.
They almost like that's what's going on right now, which is why if you had, if you made $75,000 or less, you got $1,200. And there's a big difference between $75,000 in nowhere, Missouri versus $75,000 in New York City. So it's
right.
It was just the same. Yeah. So blanket for everybody. So
yeah, I mean, and we saw that with EIDL as well. Initially, it was supposed to be get your advance on the business side. You're supposed to roll it into PPP and refinance it. And then they changed the rules. They realized they're not going to be able to manage it. And they said, you know what, the EIDL, the first 10 grand, it's just $1,000. Here,
Right.
have it. Goodbye.
So with that, so now we have like this unemployment or like this personal stimulus check. I know like what's going on with the portal online or like the ability to check, because I think some people have like gotten their money, but then others they're telling them that if you haven't filed taxes, we're going to Venmo you. Like what is all that?
Yeah, so it's been a big cluster. What people got to realize is we got 360 million people in America now. Of course, not everybody files. A lot of couples, people that are part of families. But what they're having to figure out is, how do we get as much money to as many people as quickly as possible? And we really got to understand is the government has never been ahead of times with technology, right?
Right.
So here they are trying to sift through people's tax returns from have you filed 18? Have you filed 19? Well, what's the AGI in 18 or 19? Were you married, not married? Were you alive or dead? Like, what the hell do we do with you?
Right.
So a lot of that is going on where their technology is not that good. They're not integrated. IRS is not integrated with Social Security Administration, so they don't know what one side's doing, what the other one's not. So that's what's causing this. It's not that your tax person messed up, that your tax software messed up, that the IRS didn't process your return. It's just the sheer volume of data in such a short period of time. And that's true for every stimulus package that we've talked about. They've all had issues with processing data, being able to look it up. So this is the best I can always tell people is, look, you got to be somewhat patient. Like, we all want our money yesterday,
Right.
but no, like literally nobody can help you find that data. If the IRS's system says, we have nothing right now, check back tomorrow. You go back, look through your 18 and 19 returns, make sure you're eligible for it. They have a FAQ on why you might be getting those messages. So check out the FAQs on the IRS's website. And, if you're due a stimulus check, you're going to get it. When? Nobody has a clue.
So we'll cover real estate. So I know real estate right now is you've got some of this forbearance stuff. What the hell is forbearance?
Yeah, so initially when it came out, everybody thought, okay, well, great. The mortgage companies are going to let me off the hook for 1, 2, 3 months. Everybody's initial thought is they're just going to push it back. And so you get a delay. Instead of having to pay April 1st, you might make that payment in July, and then it just pushes your whole schedule, your whole repayment back 3 months. You want to read the details. So this has been catching a lot of attention. A lot of the fine print in these forbearance packages says that whenever you go back to paying your mortgage, you're going to have to make up the months, 1, 2, or 3 months that you got forbearance, and you're going to have to pay it all at once. So a lot of people are going to get smacked right upside the head when they get that bill in July or August, and it's for 3, 4, 5 months worth of mortgage payments.
Yep.
And they're not going to be ready for it. And so that's going to start a whole nother wave of messiness. And, some people are concerned about defaults, about, obviously your credit score might take a big hit. So these are things that, once you do get your stimulus check, you got to get your financial house in order, make sure that the mortgage situation you do not want to fall back on.
Well, have you heard of this thing where what they're doing is some people that are filing for forbearance, I guess the banks are going to their credit and putting a little mark that says they applied for this. So
I've read about it. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen the credit reports.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised at all that they would do that, because again, the banks want their money no matter what. They don't care how terribly you're doing. They don't care what's going on in the world.
Right.
So they're definitely, if you don't pay, whenever that happens in 2, 3, 4 months, it will hit your credit. You better believe that.
And they're smart. They know the loopholes, because I guess there's now with real estate, there's one where it's trying to pass in Congress where it's I guess rent. You just get free rent or something like that. Have you heard of that one?
Get free rent for what?
There's they just will forgive your rent. They were just I don't know about it. Maybe we'll look that one up and we'll talk about that tomorrow, because apparently that's a newer thing where it's not forbearance, but it's actually they're working with I guess the actual property managers to say yeah, you just have to let people off the hook for X amount of time.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
The second derivative of that is, okay, so they say, yeah, you don't have to pay your rent. So who does that hit? You got to think about the next step, right? So then your property management company, your landlord, now they don't have the money, but they still have a mortgage to pay.
Right.
So now they're not paying the bank. It's all a big circle. And so then ultimately the government's going to have to bail out the banks, and then we're going to say, well, the banks got bailed out again.
Yeah.
So it's all a big circle. And it sounds great in theory, but somebody's got to pay for it at some point. And I don't know how that's going to shake out. But that goes back to the $2,000 checks that you talked about at the beginning of the call. The whole idea of those is, we give people $2,000 a month and they can go pay their rent. All just one big circle.
All right, last thing I'll throw at you, and this may not even be your territory, but oil being negative. So Audrey texted me about that today and said, did you know that the price of oil is officially negative? And I was like, oh, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw that it took a big tumble today, but I thought that was the futures contracts.
So my understanding is that maybe that is, but the oil companies, because they went through all this, the Saudi Arabia versus Russia, and then nobody's using oil right now. They're effectively paying these distribution companies to take their barrels of oil and store them somewhere else.
For storage, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the futures contract. So it's not directly the barrel of oil. The barrel of oil still has value, and I think it was like.
All right, we're resuming. We're back. So, sorry, my computer froze. I've never had that happen before. So, let's wrap this thing up. So, we got oil, and the futures are at zero. We have no idea what's going on. So, what is the latest with the oil?
Yes, it's just expectations of the future and interest rates. Interest rates are pretty much at zero across the board in the world. And then, the oil companies essentially have to pay storage facilities to hold their oil because they can't sell them anywhere. And so it's going to come down to, okay, now do they shut down productions, lay people off? Again, a big negative cycle. And I also read it's starting to hurt the airline companies, Boeing and Airbus, in terms of production and sales as well, because nobody's flying. Oil is cheap, so nobody's trading up towards newer, more efficient planes. So it's just interesting, but I think it's all about the expectation of how soon are we going to get back to driving, to traveling, and stuff like that. Once we get better news, and I saw today Georgia is working on reopening starting on Friday, and I think more and more states are going to start to do that here in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So I think you'll see that come back in oil. Now there's other issues with that and things that go into it, but that's what caused the big drop today.
So to wrap all this stuff up, long story short, it really seems like right now, hopefully PPP 2.0. I saw Steve Mnuchin or Munchkin or however you want to say his last name is talking about hopefully it gets passed. I don't think it's going to get passed today, but maybe tomorrow, the 21st.
No. They actually came out. The Senate's going to try to put it on the floor tomorrow. And then if the Senate passes tomorrow, it goes to the House on Wednesday. So that's the earliest.
All right. So hopefully it's soon, but not for another few days at least.
Right.
All right. Cool. All right. Is there anything else we're missing about the 420 update?
Nah, I think we covered a lot today. Obviously, went a little over on time, but there was a lot going on here over the weekend and today. So again, just stay on top of the news. Get your apps ready for PPP, diversify lenders, and be patient with the stimulus checks.
Be patient. That's all you can do. So everyone, have a great Monday. Thank you for joining
Later.
Adine and I. See ya.
See ya.